Have you ever watched a room fall into chaos and felt that quiet urge to do something, yet your body froze and your mind whispered, "Wait"? I have seen how panic spreads like fire and how most people fight harder only to burn faster. But a few do something different. They grow still and begin to see what others miss. Stay with me and let's look closer. As we step into the first chapter, imagine this moment with me, a room trembling under its own noise, papers scattered, voices clashing, footsteps thundering across the floor. And yet in the center of it all stands someone still, calm, almost untouched by the current tearing through everyone else. It is a strange sight. Not coldness, not escape. Something deeper, something earned. And you can feel the contrast in your own chest because you've been on both ends of that storm. There are days when life unravels faster than your hands can hold it. You try to steady the world, but it keeps slipping. The argument that spirals out of your grasp, the plan that collapses without warning, the noise that slowly tightens around your ribs until breathing feels like effort. In those moments, you think you're losing control of everything around you, but the real loss is happening inside. That is why Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind is the one thing you truly command. Many admire that line. Few practice it, because the painful truth is simple. When you cannot rule your mind, the world will rule you. I remember a week when everything fell apart at once. A long-awaited opportunity dissolved without explanation. A friend I trusted cut deeper than any enemy could. Days felt heavy, and by the end of that week I found myself trapped in traffic, knuckles pale, heartbeat hammering, frustration rising like heat from the asphalt. My own thoughts became louder than the chaos outside, and in that pressure, Seneca's warning surfaced. The fiercest storm is the one carried inside an unquiet soul. So I took a breath, not to soothe myself, but to pull myself back into command. It felt unnatural, it felt difficult, because silence always demands more strength than reaction. Anyone can explode, very few can remain still. Mastering the inner storm does not mean suppressing emotion. Stoicism has never asked us to be stone. It asks us to be skilled, to turn raw feeling into clarity instead of collapse. Anger is not the enemy. Fear is not the enemy. Anxiety is not the enemy. They are signals, warning lights revealing where your desire and your influence have fallen out of alignment. A Stoic does not ignore these signals. He studies them. He chooses his action the way a seasoned captain reads the shifting wind, not by shouting at the ocean, by adjusting the sails. Think of how many times chaos has tricked you into harming yourself. Someone throws an insult your way, and pride rises before wisdom can speak. You feel the impulse to counter, defend, retaliate. And just like that, the storm outside has awakened the storm within. Chaos wins without lifting a finger. It does not need to break you. It just needs you to break your own discipline. Epictetus reminded us that our power lives in our response. The battle is not in the insult or the circumstance. The battle is in the tiny moment between trigger and reaction. Control that moment, and you control the entire direction of your life. There is an old story of a Roman commander who, before every battle, would step away from his legion, close his eyes, and breathe in stillness. When asked why, he answered, "If I conquer myself before the battle begins, I have already won half." This is the Stoic's preparation. You don't calm a river by splashing at its waves. You calm it by anchoring yourself at the shore. You quiet the storm by anchoring yourself so deeply that no wind can uproot you. Begin small. The next time anger rises, delay your first word. Let the wave crest and fall. The next time anxiety grips you, remind yourself that the future is only a thought, not a threat. Write down what belongs to your control and what lies outside it. Keep the first list. Release the second. These are not gentle rituals. They are acts of authority over your own mind. Each small moment of restraint is a rebellion against chaos. Stillness is not retreat. Stillness is strategy. When the world rushes, the one who pauses sees what others miss. Clarity is born in that pause, and clarity gives you choice. Choice is freedom. That is why Stoics trained calmness the same way warriors trained strength, not for comfort, but for command. We live in an age where chaos whispers through every screen, every notification, every imagined scenario replaying in your mind. The world wants you to react instantly. Wisdom wants you to pause. And in that single breath, you become untouchable. Remember this: disorder doesn't end because the world softens. It ends because you stop feeding it. You do not win by fighting harder. You win by not surrendering the battlefield inside you. From here, as the storm quiets, another power begins to take shape. The power of seeing clearly. And that is where our next step begins. Moving into the second chapter, picture this. The storm inside you has gone quiet, not because the world softened, but because you stopped feeding it. And as the noise fades, you find yourself standing at the edge of a crowded marketplace, watching motion without being swept into it. People shout, trade, bargain, argue, each fighting a battle that will vanish by sunrise, but you stand still long enough to notice what they miss. The smallest shift in tone, the way someone's eyes flicker before they speak, the tremble hidden behind someone's pride. And in that quiet moment of seeing, you discover that observation is not retreat. It is revelation. Have you ever noticed how the world pushes you to react faster than you can think? As if pausing is a flaw, as if stillness is surrender. From childhood to adulthood, everything around you trains you to rush, to judge, to take sides before understanding anything at all. But a Stoic learns a different rhythm. He watches first. This is not passivity, it is precision. Epictetus reminded us that clarity begins with the ability to separate what is yours from what is not. Observation is that principle made visible. When you watch without rushing to act, you begin to see that most chaos is not a force of nature. It is a creation of human impatience. I once worked with a man who almost never argued, not out of fear, but out of mastery. In heated discussions, while others clashed like waves against rock, he leaned back with the stillness of someone who understood more than he revealed. He studied the room, a raised eyebrow here, a clenched jaw there, the flicker of insecurity hiding behind someone's volume. And when he finally spoke, his words landed with the weight of something earned. No one could explain why his voice mattered so much, but everyone felt it. His silence wasn't hesitation, it was preparation. His pause wasn't weakness. It was power directed inward first, then outward in a single controlled strike. And that's the paradox. Observation is not the absence of action. It is action in its most refined form, the undisciplined rush to prove themselves. The wise wait until seeing becomes understanding. Seneca once said that delay is the cure for anger. People think that delay means indecision. It doesn't. Delay is simply the space in which truth reveals itself. If you do not give yourself that space, you act blind. Now, imagine walking into a room where two people are locked in dispute. Their voices rise, their faces burn. You say nothing at first. You listen not only to their words, but to the fear beneath them. You notice the one who interrupts the most is not the strongest, but the most insecure. You notice how certainty rarely shouts, and suddenly you realize the fight before you isn't about facts or justice. It's about dominance. About someone trying to shape the world through noise because they cannot shape themselves through discipline. The moment you see this, you step into command without lifting a finger. Observation is power because it strips away illusion. People reveal themselves endlessly, not through speeches, but through impatience, not through confidence, but through the way they break under silence. Silence is a mirror, and mirrors frighten people. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes tinted by the color of its thoughts. When you watch long enough, you begin to see those colors clearly. You start recognizing the anger that is actually fear, the confidence that is actually a disguise, the kindness that hides a motive. And once you see clearly, you stop taking any of it personally. Their storm is theirs, not yours. That is the quiet liberation observation grants. It filters poison before it reaches your mind. You stop reacting to every raised voice. You stop being pulled into storms that aren't yours to fight. Life becomes a chessboard where others move impulsively while you study the entire field. They rush to win the moment. You prepare to win the outcome. Stillness becomes strategy. The Stoics never aimed to be passive. They aimed to be right. I learned this truth once during a negotiation that nearly fell apart. The other man raised his voice, slammed his hand on the table, postured as if force could bend reason. For a moment I felt the pull of his energy, the temptation to rise to his level. But then I remembered what the Stoics warned. Emotion is the oldest trap. So I stayed silent. I watched the strain in his jaw, the uneven breath, the flicker in his eyes. And then it hit me. He wasn't trying to overpower me. He was trying to protect himself. Fear, not anger, was steering him. When I finally spoke, I kept my voice steady and low. And as if on cue, he calmed. We reached agreement. Not because I outshouted him, but because I didn't let him draft me into his storm. This is the essence of Stoic observation. It is leadership without motion, clarity without conflict, stillness that cuts deeper than force. When you learn to see, you learn to act not from impulse, but from principle. You study the world, but you also begin to study yourself. You recognize when your own impulses flare, and you question them before obeying them. You stop being a follower to your first emotion. You become a guardian of your perception. There is beauty in this, because when you observe without judgment, something unexpected emerges, compassion. You begin to see how much of human chaos comes from wounds, not wickedness. People shout because they haven't been heard. They control because they fear powerlessness. They deceive because truth terrifies them. Seeing this does not make you soft. It makes you steady. You stop absorbing every arrow. You start understanding where they were shot from. And that is why the Stoic stands still while others run. He watches the storm form before choosing where to walk. He does not fight every wind because he knows some storms collapse on their own. Observation turns chaos into clarity, and clarity into command. From here the lesson sharpens. After seeing comes choosing. And once you can see clearly, the next discipline is to act from principle rather than emotion. That moment when control becomes true command. Advancing to the third chapter, picture this. The chaos around you dims, but a quieter challenge rises within. But inside, something far more subtle begins to stir. It is the quiet tremor beneath your ribs when the world does not bend your way, the sting that rises when someone disrespects you, The weight that settles when plans collapse in your hands. The room may be silent, the world may be still, yet your emotions start shouting as if they've been waiting for the moment the noise dies down. And this is where most people lose their footing, not because life overpowered them, but because they forgot who they vowed to be when the world isn't watching. At this stage, you stand at a crossroads that every human eventually meets: emotion or principle. One pulls you toward reaction, quick and blinding. The other guides you toward reason, steady and enduring. Many choose emotion and call it honesty, claiming that every outburst is a form of truth. But Marcus Aurelius pierced through that illusion when he wrote, "If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining." Those words sound harsh to the untrained ear, yet to someone seeking strength, they are clarity itself. Stoicism never asked you to stop feeling. It asked you to stop surrendering. I remember learning that lesson the hard way, in a moment that still returns to me when I feel the heat rising in my chest. Someone I trusted twisted my words in front of a crowd, turning the room toward me with raised eyebrows and sharpened silence. My pulse surged. The urge to defend myself rose like a flame in dry grass. But somewhere inside that pressure, a quieter voice asked, "What do you truly protect if you lose yourself?" I took a single breath that felt like lifting a mountain. Then I looked him in the eye and said, "You're free to believe that." And I walked away. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument I could have thrown back. And the next day, the truth surfaced without my help. I did not win through force. I simply refused to betray my composure. From here, the lesson deepens. Seneca once warned that even if you are angry at the right person, in the right way, for the right reason, and for the right amount of time, you still may not be wise. Because wisdom has little to do with the size of the fire inside you, and everything to do with how tightly you choose to hold the torch. Each moment you let emotion command your hand, your voice, or your thoughts, a piece of your sovereignty drifts away. When you lash out, you surrender. When you hold your center, you reclaim yourself. And let's be honest, mastery of emotion is not romantic. It is quiet, unglamorous work. It is choosing to breathe instead of defend. It is letting go of the last word. It is walking away when pride screams at you to stay. Sometimes people misinterpret this. They call your calm coldness or your patience weakness. Let them. Their misunderstanding is not your burden. What defines you is your willingness to stay aligned with your principles, even when your emotions demand war. This is what the Stoics meant by the armor of reason, a shield forged from awareness rather than iron. Now imagine standing in the middle of a heated argument. The other person is shaking with anger, words flying like arrows in darkness. Everything inside you wants to answer in kind, but instead you lower your voice. You say only what needs to be said, and you say it once. Or maybe you say nothing and let the silence expose their chaos. In that moment, the balance shifts. Power moves from volume to composure. This is Stoic strength. It does not parade itself. It reveals itself when everything else falls apart. Anchoring yourself in principle means choosing clarity over comfort. It means when the crowd seeks outrage, you stand for reason. When the world provokes division, you choose calm. When you are wounded, you respond with dignity rather than revenge. This is not pretending that pain doesn't hurt. It is reminding yourself that pain does not have permission to steer the ship. Once principle takes the wheel, emotion becomes your signal, not your commander. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That is the core of this discipline. Rise above, not below. Your enemy wants your reaction. The world expects it. But when you answer with restraint, you break the cycle. You become untouchable. There is a quiet authority in the person who does not fight every fire, but instead learns to govern the flame. I recall a story about Epictetus. A man once came to him furious because someone had insulted him publicly. Epictetus asked, "Did the insult harm your virtue?" The man said no. Then Epictetus replied, "Then why do you feel injured? He only touched your name, not your nature." That line struck me the first time I read it, because most of the suffering we carry is not from what happens, but from the meaning we assign to it. Emotion exaggerates, principle clarifies. And so, when life provokes you, remember this simple truth. Between what happens and how you respond, there exists a choice. That choice is your fortress. Build it, guard it, return to it every time chaos seeks to pull you out of yourself. When insult comes, answer with reason. When disappointment bites, return to your values. When anger flares, breathe and remind yourself, no one can force you to act against your will unless you grant them the power. Anchoring yourself in principle does not mean becoming detached from humanity. It means engaging with it from strength. You love without losing yourself. You lead without dominating. You endure without bitterness. You turn reaction into reflection and reflection into direction. Because in the end, composure is not silence. It is command. It is the quiet certainty that you will not betray your own standard no matter how loud the world becomes. That is what sets the wise apart from the ordinary. Anyone can act on emotion, only the disciplined act on principle. And from that discipline, something new begins to awaken. The ability to turn your calm into presence and your presence into influence. That is where the next lesson unfolds. The art of letting stillness intimidate disorder. Here's where the fourth chapter begins, at the moment when calm has settled inside you, yet the world around you still tests your edges. The noise doesn't always come from chaos itself. Sometimes it comes from people who want to know if they can bend your composure. They poke, they provoke, they wait for your silence to crack, because your stillness to the unstable is a threat. It exposes what they cannot govern in themselves. Now imagine standing before someone whose emotions run hot. They misread your quiet as weakness. They think the one who speaks loudest leads, that the last word wins, that noise equals strength. But the Stoics saw deeper. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best answer to anger is silence. Not because silence is retreat, because silence is a mirror, and mirrors show truth." Picture the scene, someone shouting in your face, hands flailing, voice shaking the walls. Their fury is a net cast toward your reaction. One spark from you and they feel powerful. But you stay still, you breathe slow, your eyes don't harden, your posture doesn't shift. And in that moment, the room belongs to you. Their fire loses traction. Their anger starts to sound hollow, because rage needs resistance to survive. When you refuse to feed it, it starves. I once saw this unfold in a meeting. Two colleagues collided, one exploding like a storm, the other sitting back with folded hands and steady breath. No interruptions, no defense, just observation. Within minutes, the angry man unraveled. His voice cracked, his arguments thinned, and everyone around saw what he couldn't hide. He wasn't strong, he was shaken. The man who spoke least held the most command. That day, the room learned a truth Seneca hinted at. Whoever governs himself governs the outcome. Seneca called anger temporary madness, a fire that burns its wielder first. When you respond with matching fire, you lose control. But when you stand calm, you expose the absurdity of the blaze. That is why composure unsettles the unstable. It denies chaos a partner. It turns someone's rage back onto themselves. Stillness isn't passivity. It is power under discipline. The warrior who masters his own energy doesn't swing at every shadow. He knows reaction fuels the enemy. Control drains it. When you remain composed, you create quiet gravity. People feel the pull of it. They adjust their tone, their posture, even their intentions without you saying a word. That is presence, the kind that does not need announcement. Presence is invisible strength. It's the quiet weight of someone who does not need to prove anything. In a world addicted to reaction, someone who doesn't flinch is unsettling. He doesn't play by the rules of emotional chaos, and that confuses those who depend on chaos to feel powerful. There's a story of a Stoic philosopher who was insulted publicly. He didn't respond. When asked why, he said, "When a dog barks at you, do you bark back?" The crowd laughed, but the lesson cut deeper than the insult. The man who reacts loses. The man who doesn't wins without conflict. A Stoic doesn't avoid confrontation, he transforms it. When provoked, he doesn't suppress emotion, he steers it. Calmness becomes his weapon, stillness becomes his stance. The more someone pushes, the more rooted he becomes. The more they shout, the clearer he sees. Because when you refuse to be moved, the other person eventually sees their own instability reflected in your steadiness. It is not arrogance, it is mastery. I once met a teacher who embodied this. His students tested him constantly, mocking, interrupting, trying to break the boundary, but he never raised his tone. He simply looked at them, steady, unshaken. Within seconds, the mockery wilted. Later, he told me, "You don't teach people by wrestling with their chaos. You teach them by showing what calm can do." I never forgot that line, because true calm is not the absence of response, it is the presence of command. When someone attacks your peace, what they want is simple, for you to enter their storm. They need you reactive so they can feel in control. But when you stay centered, you deny them that control. They end up fighting themselves, not you. So the next time someone provokes you, resist the urge to defend your pride. Stand firm. Let your silence carry a message sharper than your anger. Look them in the eye without fear. In that moment, you become the teacher, not the target. When chaos collides with composure, it exposes itself more than it harms you. Calm is not surrender. It is precision. It is the decision to act from strength, not impulse. To remain silent, not because you have no power, but because you refuse to waste it. And once your stillness can shake the unstable, another truth appears. Patience is not waiting, it is timing. The art of striking once with clarity exactly when it matters. At this stage, imagine yourself standing on a battlefield, not one built with swords, but with choices. Dust hangs in the air. The ground shakes with people rushing, shouting, forcing decisions they haven't even thought through. They move because movement feels like control. They act because silence feels like fear. Yet you, the one who stands still, see what they cannot. You breathe. You wait, because you know this simple truth. Speed without aim is just noise wearing armor. Have you ever watched people panic their way into mistakes? They confuse motion with progress. They mistake urgency for importance. But the Stoic sees differently. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That line is the heart of timing. The wise act only when the action serves principle, not impulse. They don't rush to win. They choose to outlast. What is done from calm will always outlive what is born from haste. Picture a warrior with a bow. There's an old saying, the arrow that misses is the one released too soon. The Stoic warrior understands this. He doesn't draw the bow for every sound. He studies the wind. He measures distance. He waits for the moment when stillness and clarity meet. Because once released, an arrow cannot return, and life works the same way. Words spoken in anger, decisions made in fear, reactions born from panic. Once they leave you, they don't come back. I learned this myself once, almost too late. I had been wronged deeply. I wanted justice. I drafted a message ready to strike, ready to expose, ready to hurt. But I stopped and remembered Seneca's warning. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. So I waited one day, then another. And by the third, the fog lifted. I saw my anger for what it was, a demand for vengeance, not resolution. When I finally acted, I did so with clarity instead of fire. What could have become a war dissolved into a quiet victory. That moment taught me something I never forgot. Waiting does not weaken you, it sharpens you. This is where the Stoics' timing becomes a weapon. It's the ability to withhold action until emotion no longer leads it. When others react, you observe. When they rush, you slow. When they strike too soon, you aim. Because stillness reveals truth, and truth reveals the right moment to move. Think of Musonius Rufus, who said that self-control is strength in its purest form. Waiting isn't absence of action, it's preparation for better action. Every breath between impulse and choice builds precision. Every pause is a sharpening stone. The moment you finally move, you move once, cleanly, without waste. But look at the world today. It worships speed, instant answers, rapid replies, endless chasing. Yet speed without direction is chaos disguised as ambition. The Stoic chooses depth over haste, principle over pressure. He acts only when the action has weight, purpose, and clarity. And because of that, his movement carries power. A single calm decision can shift an entire situation, while 1,000 frantic ones change nothing. So the next time you feel the urge to rush, remind yourself, stillness is not inactivity. Stillness is choosing only what matters and only when it truly matters. The arrow that waits hits harder than the arrow fired in panic. And from this understanding, a deeper truth begins to form. Leadership is not about commanding others. It begins with commanding yourself. When timing aligns with presence, when patience pairs with clarity, you stop chasing storms and start directing them. Because this is where stillness evolves. This is where poise becomes influence. This is where the Stoic stops surviving chaos and starts shaping it. And now, from this foundation of timing, we step into the next principle, the moment where calm stops being a shield and becomes a force that leads. At this stage, picture the noise returning, but this time it wears a smile. Imagine a room full of performers, voices raised, laughter forced, confidence stretched thin like a mask about to crack, and in the corner stands someone silent, calm, grounded. He says nothing, yet people keep glancing his way. That is not charisma, that is presence, the kind that does not need applause to be felt. From here, notice how presence begins long before a person speaks. It rises from the alignment between their actions and their principles. Marcus Aurelius ruled not through threats or spectacle, but through steadiness. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That single line is the entire blueprint of presence. Virtue practiced, not performed. Strength lived, not announced. I once met a man who carried that same quiet weight. He never interrupted, never boasted, never rushed to prove a point. In rooms full of noise, he looked like the only one who wasn't performing. And when he finally spoke, every voice softened. It wasn't volume that commanded the room, it was steadiness. Later, I understood why people trusted him. He didn't chase control, he embodied it. While everyone else reacted to noise, he saw through it. He wasn't trying to be impressive, he was too busy being anchored. Seneca once wrote that the man who is calm has everything within himself. That is why presence feels magnetic. It signals composure in a world addicted to chaos. You cannot fake it. Presence isn't created by words. It is revealed by consistency, by the tiny decisions no one sees, by the patience that doesn't seek attention, by the discipline that does not tremble under pressure. Imagine walking into a conflict where everyone argues at once. Voices overlap, emotions flare, pride swells, and you remain still, listening, not passive, aware. And when you finally speak, the room falls quiet, not because you demanded silence, but because you carried clarity into the noise. That is leadership through presence, not through domination, but through direction. People follow steadiness the way sailors follow the lighthouse, because steadiness feels like safety. Presence does not chase attention, it creates gravity. When you are rooted, people feel it. They may not understand why, but they sense depth in you, a kind of inner solidity that cannot be shaken by chaos or praise. In a world obsessed with performance, the one who does not perform stands out. He becomes the anchor others subconsciously lean toward. There's a story of a Stoic philosopher who was insulted in public. He did not respond. When someone asked why, he said, "When a dog barks, do you bark back?" The answer made the crowd laugh, but it cut deeper than any retort could. The person who reacts becomes equal to the chaos he reacts to. The one who doesn't react rises above it. His silence becomes the lesson. A Stoic does not avoid chaos. He steadies it. He doesn't drown in noise. He listens through it. Presence is simply self-mastery made visible. It is the quiet realization that you need nothing from the crowd, and therefore the crowd cannot shake you. When others fight to be seen, the Stoic stands grounded. When they shout to be heard, he lets his silence speak for him. Because in a storm, people do not follow the loudest voice. They follow the one that doesn't move. And now, from this understanding of presence, the next truth begins to rise. The moment when steadiness does more than anchor you. It starts to shape the people around you. And that is where the next chapter unfolds. When the world grows loud and uncertain, remember that real strength often begins in the quiet space within you. You do not need to chase control or wrestle every storm. Take a breath, watch clearly, and choose only what protects your peace. If this spoke to you, feel free to subscribe and continue nurturing this calm clarity. Share your reflection with the phrase, "I choose calm." Stay steady and centered. A new lesson is already waiting for you in the next step.